How are bacteria cultured?
Bacteria are usually cultured in petri dishes that contain a culture medium, usually nutrient agar. Petri dishes were developed in 1887 by Julius Richard Petrie, 1852 to 1921. A member of Robert Koch's laboratory. The top of the dish is larger than the bottom so that when the dish is closed a strong seal is created, preventing contamination of the culture. Agar was developed as a culture media for bacteria by Robert Koch. Koch was interested in the isolation of bacteria in pure culture. Because isolation was difficult in liquid media, he began to study ways in which bacteria could be grown on solid media. After sterile, boiled potatoes proved unsatisfactory, a better alternative was suggested by Fanny E. Hesse, 1850 to 1934, the wife of Walther Hesse, 1846 to 1911, who was one of Koch's assistants. She suggested that agar, which she had used to thicken sauces, jams, and jellies, be used to solidify liquid nutrient broth. Agar is generally inexpensive and, once gelled, does not melt until reaching a temperature of 212 degrees Fahrenheit 100 degrees Celsius. If 1 to 2 grams of agar are added to 100 milliliter of nutrient broth, it produces a solid medium that is not degraded by most bacteria. Stacks of petri dishes culturing bacteria are one of the most common items in a microbiology laboratory.
What is the biological basis for DNA fingerprinting?
British geneticist, Alec Jeffreys, 1950, formulated the method of DNA fingerprinting, also known as DNA typing or DNA profiling, based on the fact that unique genetic differences exist between individuals. Most DNA sequences are identical, but out of 100 base pairs of DNA, two people will generally differ by one base pair. Since there are 3 billion base pairs in human DNA, one individual's DNA will differ from another's by 3 million base pairs. To examine an individual's DNA fingerprint, the DNA sample is cut with a restriction endonuclease, and the fragments are separated by gel electrophoresis. The fragments are then transferred to a nylon membrane, where they are incubated in a solution containing a radioactive DNA probe that is complementary to specific polymorphic sequences.
How quickly do bacteria reproduce?
Bacteria can reproduce very rapidly in favorable environments. In both laboratory cultures and natural habitats, the time required for a bacterial population to double is called generation time. For example, under optimal conditions, Escherichia coli can divide every 17 minutes. A laboratory culture started with a single cell can produce a colony of 107 to 108 bacteria in about 12 hours.
Another type of fossil is the imprint of a what are Indian dollars?
They are six-sided, disc-shaped, twin crystals of aragonite, Caco3, which have altered to calcite but retain their outer form. They occur in large numbers in northern Colorado, where they are known as Indian dollars. In New Mexico they are called Aztec money, and in western Kansas they are called pioneer dollars.
How does a rock differ from a mineral?
Mineralogists use the term mineral for a substance that has all four of the following features. It must be found in nature, it must be made up of substances that were never alive, organic. It has the same chemical makeup wherever it is found, and its atoms are arranged in a regular pattern to form solid crystals. Although rocks are sometimes described as an aggregate or combination of one or more minerals, geologists extend the definition to include clay, loose sand, and certain limestones.
What are the main components found in motor vehicle exhaust?
The main components of exhaust gas are nitrogen, carbon dioxide, and water. Smaller amounts of nitrogen oxides, carbon monoxide, hydrocarbons, aldehydes, and other products of incomplete combustion are also present. The most important air pollutants, in order of amount produced, are carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, and hydrocarbons.
What is unusual about the way the emperor penguin's eggs are incubated?
Each female emperor penguin, Aptenidites fursteri, lays one large egg. Initially, both sexes share in incubating the egg by carrying it on his or her feet and covering it with a fold of skin. After a few days of passing the egg back and forth, the female leaves to feed in the open water of the Arctic Ocean. Balancing their eggs on their feet, the male penguins shuffle about the rookery, periodically huddling together for warmth during blizzards and frigid weather. If an egg is inadvertently orphaned, a male with no egg will quickly adopt it. 2 months after the female's departure, the chick hatches. The male feeds it with a milky substance he regurgitates until the female returns, now padded with blubber. The females take over feeding the chicks with fish they have stored in their crops. The females do not return to their mate, however, but wander from male to male until one allows her to take his chick. It is then the male's turn to feed in open water and restore the fat layer they lost while incubating.
How does a nematocist work?
A nematocyst is a specialized organelle found in all cnidarians. Each nematocyst features a coiled, thread-like tube lined with a series of barbed spines. The nematocyst is used to capture prey and may also be used for defense purposes. When it is triggered to discharge, the extremely high osmotic pressure within the nematocyst, 140 atmospheres, causes water to rush into the capsule, increasing the hydrostatic pressure and expelling the thread with great force. The barb instantly penetrates the prey, stinging it with a highly toxic protein.
How did the electrical term ampere originate?
It was named for André Marie Ampère, 1775 to 1836. The physicist who formulated the basic laws of the science of electrodynamics. The ampere, A, often abbreviated as amp, is the unit of electric current. Defined at the constant current, that, maintained in two straight parallel infinite conductors placed 1 meter apart in a vacuum, would produce a force between the conductors of 2x 10 to 7 Newton per meter. For example, the amount of current flowing through a 100-watt light bulb is 1 amp. Through a toaster, 10 amps, a TV set, 3 amps, a car battery, 50 amps, while cranking. A Newton, N, is defined as a unit of force needed to accelerate 1 kilogram by 1 meter second 2, or 1 N equals 1, kg xm, slash s2.
How are pearls created?
Pearls are formed in saltwater oysters and freshwater clams. There is a curtain-like tissue called the mantle within the body of these mollusks. Certain cells on the side of the mantle toward the shell secrete nacre, also known as mother of pearl, during a specific stage of the shell building process. A pearl is the result of an oyster's reaction to a foreign body, such as a piece of sand or a parasite, within the oyster's shell. The oyster neutralizes the invader by secreting thin layers of nacre around the foreign body, eventually building it into a pearl. The thin layers are alternately composed of calcium carbonate, argonite, and conchiolin. Irritants intentionally placed within an oyster result in the production of what are called cultured pearls.
Is washing dishes by hand better for the environment than using an automatic dishwasher?
Dishwashers often save energy and water compared to hand washing. Depending on the brand, dishwashers typically consume 7.5 to 12 gallons. 28 to 45 liters of water per normal wash. Hand washing a day's worth of dishes may use up to 15 gallons, 57 liters, of water. One university study found that dishwashers consume about 37% less water than washing by hand. Several steps can be taken for additional energy savings when using a dishwasher. The setting on a home's water heater can be turned down to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. 49 degrees Celsius, if the dishwasher has a booster heater. While some machines feature a no-heat, air-dry setting. Simply opening the door after the final rinse to let the dishes air dry will save energy.
How can pets be treated to remove skunk odor?
From a pet store, purchase one of the products specifically designed to counteract skunk odor. Most of these are of the enzyme or bacterial enzyme variety and can be used without. Washing the pet first. A dog may also be given a bath with tomato juice, diluted vinegar, or Neutralium alpha, or you could try mint mouthwash, aftershave, or soap and water.
Is it more economical to run an automobile with its windows open rather than using its air conditioner?
At speeds greater than 40 miles, 64 kilometers, per hour. Less fuel is used in driving an automobile with the air conditioner on and the windows up than with the windows rolled down. This is due to the air drag effect, the resistance that a vehicle encounters as it moves through a fluid medium, such as air. In automobiles, the amount of engine power required to overcome this drag force increases. With the cube of the vehicle's speed twice the speed requires 8 times the power. For example, it takes 5 horsepower for the engine to overcome the air resistance at 40 miles. 64 kilometers per hour, but at 60 miles, 97 kilometers per hour. It takes 18 horsepower, at 80 miles, 128 kilometers per hour, it takes 42 horsepower. Improved aerodynamics, in which the drag coefficient measure of air drag effect is reduced, significantly increases fuel efficiency. The average automobile in 1990 had a drag coefficient of about 0.32. 0.35 in the early 1960s, it was 0.5 on average, and it was 0.47 in the 1970s. The lowest maximum level possible for wheeled vehicles is 0.15.
Who prepared the first weather map?
The first weather map was prepared by Francis Galton, 1822 to 1911. In 1862, his initial map was prepared by requesting detailed information about the weather in the month of December 1861 from weather stations throughout the British Isles. He plotted the data he collected, drawing the world's first weather map.
What do the octane numbers of gasoline mean?
The octane number is a measure of the gasoline's ability to resist engine knock. Two test fuels, normal heptane and isooctane, are blended for test results to determine octane number. Normal heptane has an octane number of 0 and isooctane a value of 100. Gasolines are then compared with these test blends to find one that makes the same knock as the test fuel. The octane rating of the gasoline under testing is the percentage by volume of isooctane required to produce the same knock. For example, if the test blend has 85% isooctane, the gasoline has an octane rating of 85. The octane rating that appears on gasoline pumps is an average of research octane determined in laboratory tests with engines running at low speeds, and motor octane, determined at higher speeds.
How much damage might it have done?
Asteroid 2002 M7, a rock 230 feet, 70 meters long, is estimated to have the capability of releasing the energy equivalent of a 4-megaton nuclear bomb.
What are the transuranic chemical elements and the names for elements 102 to 109?
Transuranic elements are those elements in the periodic system with atomic numbers greater than 92. Many of these elements are ephemeral, do not exist naturally outside the laboratory, and are not stable.
Who made the first golf shot on the moon?
Alan B. Shepard Jr., commander of Apollo 14, launched on January 31, 1971, made the first golf shot. He attached a 6-iron to the handle of the contingency sample return container, dropped a golf ball on the moon, and took a couple of one-handed swings. He missed with the first, but connected with the second. The ball, he reported, sailed for miles and miles.
How thick is the ice that covers Antarctica?
The average depth of the ice that covers Antarctica is 6,600 feet, 2,000 meters, or more than a mile thick. In some areas, the ice is as thick as 2 miles, 3 kilometers. Nearly 90% of the world's ice is found in Antarctica.
What is the meaning of the numbers in a blood pressure reading?
When blood is forced into the aorta, it exerts a pressure against the walls. This is referred to as blood pressure. The upper number, The systolic, measures the pressure during the period of ventricular contraction. The lower number, the diastolic, measures the pressure when blood is entering the relaxed chambers of the heart. While these numbers can vary due to age, sex, weight, and other factors. The normal blood pressure is around 110/60 to 140/90 mm of mercury.
What is a bacteriophage?
A bacteriophage, also called a phage, is a virus that infects bacteria. The term bacteriophage means bacteria eater, from the Greek word phagein, which means to devour. Phages consist of a long nucleic acid molecule, usually DNA, coiled within a polyhedral-shaped protein head. Many phages have a tail attached to the head. Fibers extending from the tail may be used to attach the virus to the bacterium.
What is obsidian?
Obsidian is a volcanic glass that usually forms in the upper parts of lava flows. Embryonic crystal growths, known as crystal lights, make the glass an opaque, jet black color. Red or brown obsidian could result if iron oxide dust is present. There are some well-known formations in existence, including the Obsidian Cliffs in Yellowstone Park and Mount Hekla in Iceland.
Is it true that the rotation speed of Earth varies?
The rotation speed is at its maximum in late July and early August and at its minimum in April. The difference in the length of the day is about 0.0012 second. Since about 1900, Earth's rotation has been slowing at a rate of approximately 1.7 seconds per year. In the geologic past, Earth's rotational period was much faster. Days were shorter and there were more days in the year. About 350 million years ago, the year had 400 to 410 days. 280 million years ago, a year was 390 days long.
Why do cats' eyes shine in the dark?
A cat's eyes contain a special light-conserving mechanism called the tapetum lucidum, which reflects any light not absorbed as it passes through the retina of each eye. The retina gets a second chance, so to speak, to receive the light, aiding the cat's vision even more. In dim light, when the pupils of the cat's eyes are open the widest, this glowing or shining effect occurs when light hits them at certain angles. The tapetum lucidum, located behind the retina, is a membrane composed of 15 layers of special glittering cells that all together act as a mirror. The color of the glow is usually greenish or golden. but the eyes of the Siamese cat reflect a luminous ruby red.
When were the first cases of West Nile virus reported in the United States?
The first cases of West Nile virus were identified in 1999 in the New York City area. West Nile virus is primarily a disease of birds found in Africa, West Asia, and the Middle East. It is transmitted to humans mainly via mosquito bites, mainly from the species Culex pipiens. The female mosquito catches the virus when it bites an infected bird and then passes it on when it later bites a human. In humans it causes encephalitis, an infection of the brain that can be lethal.
What is a perfect number?
A perfect number is a number equal to the sum of all its proper divisors, divisors smaller than the number, including 1. The number 6 is the smallest perfect number. The sum of its divisors 1, 2, and 3 equals 6. The next three perfect numbers are 28, 496, and 8126. No odd perfect numbers are known. The largest known perfect number is 2302137 2302137 1. It was discovered in 2001.
What are the major distinguishing characteristics of ceramics?
Ceramics are crystalline compounds of metallic and nonmetallic elements. Ceramics are the most rigid of all materials with an almost total absence of ductility. They have the highest known melting points of materials, with some being as high as 7,000 degrees Fahrenheit. 3,870 degrees Celsius, and many that melt at temperatures of 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit 1,927 degrees Celsius. Glass, brick, cement, and plaster, dinnerware, artware, and porcelain enamel are all examples of ceramics.
What was the flower clock of Linnaeus?
Carolus Linnaeus, 1707 to 1778, who was responsible for the binomial nomenclature, classification system of living organisms, invented a floral clock to tell the time of day. He had observed over a number of years that certain plants consistently opened and closed their flowers at particular times of the day. These times varied from species to species. One could deduce the approximate time of day according to which species had opened or closed its flowers. Linnaeus planted a garden displaying local flowers, arranged in sequence of flowering throughout the day, that would flower even on cloudy or cold days. He called it a horologium flori, or flower clock.
How do fishes swimming in a school change their direction simultaneously?
He movement, which confuses predators, happens because fish detect pressure changes in the water. The detection system, called the lateral line, is found along each side of the fish's body. Along the line are clusters of tiny hairs inside cups filled with a jelly-like substance. If a fish becomes alarmed and turns sharply, it causes a pressure wave in the water around it. This wave pressure deforms the jelly in the lateral line of nearby fish. This moves the hairs that trigger nerves, and a signal is sent to the brain telling the fish to turn.
Which common houseplants are poisonous?
Philodendron, Philodendron and Monstera, and Dumcane. Dieffenbachia are some of the most common poisonous houseplants. All parts of both of these plants are poisonous.
What are the preferred and permissible blood types for transfusions?
The table below lists the blood types that are best matched with other blood types.
Is Earth closer to the Sun in winter than in summer in the Northern Hemisphere?
Yes. However, Earth's axis, the line around which the planet rotates, is tipped 23.5 degrees with respect to the plane of revolution around the Sun. When Earth is closest to the Sun, it's perihelion. About January 3, the northern hemisphere is tilted away from the Sun. This causes winter in the northern hemisphere while the southern hemisphere is having summer. When Earth is farthest from the Sun, it's aphelion, around July 4. The situation is reversed, with the northern hemisphere tilted toward the Sun. At this time, it is summer in the northern hemisphere and winter in the southern hemisphere.
What is the difference between simple interest and compound interest?
Simple interest is calculated on the amount of principal only. Compound interest is calculated on the amount of principal plus any previous interest already earned. For example, $100 invested at a rate of 5% for 1 year will earn $5 after 1 year earning simple interest. The same $100 will earn $5.12 if compounded monthly.
Who was the first programmer?
According to historical accounts, Lord Byron's, 1788–1824, daughter, Augusta Ada Byron, 1815–1852. The Countess of Lovelace, was the first person to write a computer program for Charles Babbage's analytical engine. This machine was to work by means of punched cards that could store partial answers that could later be retrieved for additional operations and would then print the results. Her work with Babbage and the essays she wrote about the possibilities of the engine established her as a kind of founding parent of the art and science of programming. The programming language called Ada was named in her honor by the U.S. Department of Defense. In modern times, Commodore Grace Murray Hopper, 1906 to 1992. Of the U.S. Navy, is acknowledged as one of the first programmers of the Mark I computer in 1944.
Who established the first botanical garden in the United States?
John Bartram, 1699 to 1777, planned and laid out a botanical garden of 5 to 6 acres. 2 to 2.5 hectare, in 1728. It is located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
When did gasoline stations open?
The first service station, or garage, was opened in Bordeaux, France, in December 1895 by a Barrel. It provided overnight parking, repair service, and refills of oil and motor spirit. In April 1897, a parking and refueling establishment, Brighton Cycle and Motor Co. opened in Brighton, England. The pump that would be used to eventually dispense gasoline was devised by Silenus Bowser of Fort Wayne, Indiana, in September 1885. It originally dispensed kerosene. 20 years later, Bowser manufactured the first self-regulating gasoline pump. In 1912, a Standard Oil of Louisiana superstation opened in Memphis, Tennessee, featuring 13 pumps, a ladies' restroom, and a maid who served ice water to waiting customers. On December 1, 1913, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the Gulf Refining Company opened the first drive-in station as a 24-hour-a-day operation. Only 30 gallons, 114 liters, of gasoline were sold the first day.
Which breed is known as the voiceless dog?
The Basenji dog does not bark. When happy, it will make an appealing sound described as something between a chortle and a yodel. It also snarls and growls on occasion. One of the oldest breeds of dogs, and originating in Central Africa. The Basenji was often given as a present to the pharaohs of ancient Egypt. Following the decline of the Egyptian civilization, the Basenji was still valued in Central Africa for its hunting prowess and its silence. The dog was rediscovered by English explorers in the 19th century. Although it was not widely bred until the 1940s. The Basenji is a small, lightly built dog with a flat skull and a long, rounded muzzle. It measures 16 to 17 inches, 40 to 43 centimeters in height at the shoulder and weighs 22 to 24 pounds, 10 to 11 kilograms. The coat is short and silky in texture. The feet, chest, and tail tip are white, the rest of the coat is chestnut red, black, or black and tan.
What is mitosis and what are the stages of this process?
Mitosis involves the replication of DNA and its separation into two new daughter cells which are genetically identical to the parent cell. While only 4 phases of mitosis are often listed, the entire process is actually composed of 6 phases. Interphase involves extensive preparation for the division process. Prophase, the condensation of chromosomes. The nuclear membrane disappears, formation of the spindle apparatus. Chromosomes attached to spindle fibers. Metaphase, chromosomes, attached by spindle fibers, align along the midline of a cell. Anaphase. The intramer splits and chromatids move apart. Telophase, the nuclear membrane reforms around newly divided chromosomes. Cytokinesis, the division of cytoplasm, cell membranes, and organelles occur.
What does the word amphibian mean?
The word amphibian, from the Greek term amphibia, means both lives and refers to the animal's double life on land and in water. The usual life cycle of amphibians begins with eggs laid in water, which develop into aquatic larvae with external gills, in a development that recapitulates its evolution. The fish-like larva develops lungs and limbs and becomes an adult.
What was the first National Physics Society organized in the United States?
The first National Physics Society in the United States was the American Physical Society, organized on May 20, 1899, at Columbia University in New York City. The first president was physicist Henry Augustus Rowland, 1848 to 1901.
How are chromosomes assembled?
Chromosomes are assembled on a scaffold of proteins, called hist-1s, that allow DNA to be tightly packed. There are 5 major types of hist-1s, all of which have a positive charge. The positive charges of the hist-1s attract the negative charges on the phosphates of DNA, thus holding the DNA in contact with the hist-1s. These thicker strands of DNA and proteins are called chromatin. Chromatin is then packed to form the familiar structure of a chromosome. During mitosis, chromosomes acquire characteristic shapes that allow them to be counted and identified.
What is the Rh factor?
in addition to the ABO system of blood types. Blood types can also be grouped by the rhesus factor, or Rh factor, an inherited blood characteristic. Discovered independently in 1939 by Philip Levine, 1900 to 1987, and R. E. Stetson, and in 1940 by Karl Landsteiner and A. S. Wiener. The Rh system classifies blood as either having the Rh factor or lacking it. Pregnant women are carefully screened for the Rh factor. If a mother is found to be Rh negative, the father is also screened. Parents with incompatible Rh factors can lead to potentially fatal blood problems in newborn infants. The condition can be treated with a series of blood transfusions.
What are the sources of air pollution?
Transportation is one of the major contributors to air pollution. Other significant sources of air pollution are fuel combustion, burning fossil fuels, and industrial processes, such as refineries, iron and steel mills, paper mills, and chemical plants.
What is a trophic level?
A trophic level represents a step in the dynamics of energy flow through an ecosystem. The first trophic level is made up of the producers, those within the ecosystem that harvest energy from an outside source like the sun, or deep-sea thermal vents, and stabilize or fix it so that it remains in the system and is accessible to others within the system. The second level would comprise those who consume the producers, also known as the primary consumers. The next level would contain the secondary consumers, those who consume the primary consumers, and so on. Because of the limited amount of energy available to each level, these trophic pyramids rarely rise above a third or fourth level of structure. R. Lindemann, 1915 to 1942, was one of the first ecologists to refer to the trophic dynamics of ecosystems, doing so in 1942.
What is the most famous volcano?
The eruption of Mt. Vesuvius in Italy on August 79 CE is perhaps the most famous historical volcanic eruption. Vesuvius had been dormant for generations. When it erupted, entire cities were destroyed, including Pompeii, Stabia, and Herculaneum. Pompeii and Stabia were buried under ashes while Herculaneum was buried under a mud flow.
Which are the largest and smallest muscles in the human body?
The largest muscle is the gluteus maximus, buttock muscle, which moves the thigh bone away from the body and straightens out the hip joint. It is also one of the stronger muscles in the body. The smallest muscle is the stapedius in the middle ear. It is thinner than a thread and 0.05 inches, 0.127 centimeters, in length. It activates the stirrup that sends vibrations from the eardrum to the inner ear.
What are the levels of structural organization in vertebrate animals, including humans?
Every vertebrate animal has 4 major levels of hierarchical organization: cell, tissue, organ, and organ system. Each level in the hierarchy is of increasing complexity, and all organ systems work together to maintain life.
Which elements are contained in Earth's crust?
The most abundant elements in Earth's crust are listed in the table below. In addition, nickel, copper, lead, zinc, tin, and silver account for less than 0.02%, with all other elements comprising 0.48%.
What is the amount of carbon dioxide found in normal blood?
Carbon dioxide normally ranges from 19 to 50 millimeters per liter in arterial blood and 22 to 30 millimeters per liter in venous blood.
The following chart indicates the top 5 states with their capacity for electricity generated by wind. Which states generate the highest percentage of electricity from wind?
The United States was able to generate more than 25,000 megawatts, MW, of electricity from the wind in 2008. This supplied an estimated 73 billion kilowatt-hours of electricity, which was enough to power about 7 million average American homes. Minnesota and Iowa both got over 7% of their electricity from wind energy.
What is an astrolabe?
Invented by the Greeks or Alexandrians around 100 B. CE, an astrolabe is a two-dimensional working model of the heavens, with sites for observations. It consists of 2 concentric, flat disks, one fixed, representing the observer on Earth, the other moving, which can be rotated to represent the appearance of the celestial sphere at a given moment. Given latitude, date, and time, the observer can read off the altitude and azimuth of the Sun, the brightest stars, and the planets. By measuring the altitude of a particular body, one can find the time. The astrolabe can also be used to find times of sunrise, sunset, twilight, or the height of a tower or depth of a well. After 1600, it was replaced by the sextant and other more accurate instruments.
Is a halo around the sun or moon a sign of rain or snow approaching?
The presence of a ring around the sun or, more commonly, the moon in the night sky indicates very high ice crystals composing cirrostratus clouds. The brighter the ring, the greater the odds of precipitation and the sooner it may be expected. Rain or snow will not always fall, but 2 times out of 3. Precipitation will start to fall within 12 to 18 hours. These cirriform clouds are a forerunner of an approaching warm front and an associated low-pressure system.
What are the essential nutrients?
There are 6 essential nutrients: carbohydrates, fats, proteins, water, vitamins, and minerals. Energy nutrients are those that provide the body with the majority of the energy needed for daily metabolic reactions. Carbohydrates, fats, and proteins are energy nutrients.
What is a chemical bond?
A chemical bond is an attraction between the electrons present in the outermost energy level or shell of a particular atom. This outermost energy level is known as the valence shell. Atoms with an unfilled outer shell are less stable and tend to share, accept, or donate electrons. When this happens, a chemical bond is formed.
When was the nucleus first described?
The Scottish botanist Robert Brown, 1773 to 1858, first named and described the nucleus in 1831, while studying orchids. Brown called this structure the nucleus, from the Latin nucula, meaning little nut or kernel.
Why was Stewart successful?
Like previous investigators, he supplied the cultured cells with sugars, minerals, and vitamins. In addition, he also added a new ingredient, coconut milk. Coconut milk contains, among other things, a substance that induces cell division. Subsequent research identified this material as cytokinins, a group of plant hormones, growth regulators, that stimulate cell division. Once the cultured cells began dividing, they were transplanted on agar media, where they formed roots and shoots and developed into plants.
Who invented Teflon?
In 1938, the American engineer Roy J. Plunkett, 1910 to 1994, At DuPont de Nemours discovered the polymer of tetraluroethylene, PTFE, by accident. This fluorocarbon is marketed under the name of Fluon in Great Britain and Teflon in the United States. Patented in 1939 and first exploited commercially in 1954. PTFE is resistant to all acids and has exceptional stability and excellent electrical insulating properties. It is used in making piping for corrosive materials, in insulating devices for radio transmitters, in pump gaskets, and in computer microchips. In addition, its non-stick properties make PTFE an ideal material for surface coatings. In 1956, French engineer Marc Grégoire discovered a process whereby he could fix a thin layer of Teflon on an aluminum surface. He then patented the process of applying it to cookware, and the non-stick frying pan was created.
When was the National Weather Service founded?
The National Weather Service is part of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. It was started on February 9, 1870 when President Ulysses S. Grant, 1822–1885, signed a joint resolution of Congress authorizing the Secretary of War to establish a National Weather Service. Its first official name was the National Weather Bureau. It was renamed the U.S. Weather Bureau in 1891 and became the National Weather Service in 1967. Its mission is to provide weather, hydrologic, and climate forecasts and warning for the citizens of the United States, its territories, adjacent waters, and ocean areas in order to protect life and property and for the enhancement of the national economy. Weather observations are now made hourly and daily by government agencies, volunteer/citizen observers, ships, planes, automatic weather stations, and Earth-orbiting satellites.
How much water is in an inch of snow?
An average figure is 10 inches, 25 centimeters, of snow is equal to 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters, of water. Heavy, wet snow has a high water content, 4 to 5 inches. 10 to 12 centimeters, may contain 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters, of water. A dry, powdery snow might require 15 inches, 38 centimeters, of snow to equal 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters, of water.
How many people living in the United States are centenarians?
The number of centenarians in the United States has increased steadily over the decades. The 2000 census recorded more than 50,000 centenarians, up from 37,000 in the 1990 census. The Census Bureau estimated there were 96,548 centenarians in the United States on November 1, 2008. The United Nations projects there will be 2.2 million centenarians, or 1 of every 5,000 people, worldwide by 2050.
What is the difference between type I and type 2 diabetes?
Type I is insulin-dependent diabetes mellitus, IDDM. And type 2 is non-insulin-dependent diabetes mellitus, NIDDM. In type I diabetes there is an absolute deficiency of insulin. It accounts for approximately 10% of all cases of diabetes and has a greater prevalence in children. In type 2 diabetes, insulin secretion may be normal, but the target cells for insulin are less responsive than normal. The incidence of type 2 diabetes increases greatly after age 40 and is normally associated with obesity and lack of exercise as well as genetic predisposition. The symptoms of type 2 diabetes are usually less severe than type I, but long-term complications are similar in both types.
What are the highest and lowest points on Earth?
The highest point on land is the top of Mt. Everest, in the Himalayas on the Nepal-Tibet border, at 29,035 feet 8,850 meters, above sea level. This measurement, taken using satellite-based technology, includes the snow and ice layers which are estimated at between 30 feet, 9 meters, to 60 feet, 18 meters. The National Geographic Society accepted this height in November 1999. The U.S. National Imagery and Mapping Agency has also accepted 29,035 feet, 8,850 meters, as the official height. There is hope that ground-penetrating radar will one day be used to determine the snowpack depth. The height established by the Surveyor General of India in 1954 and accepted by the National Geographic Society was 29,028 feet. 8,845 meters, plus or minus 10 feet, 3 meters, because of snow. Earlier measurements indicated the height of Mt. Everest was 29,002 feet, 8,840 meters. Satellite measurements taken in 1987 indicated that Mt. Everest is 29,864 feet, 9,102 meters, high. But this measurement was not adopted by the National Geographic Society. The lowest point on land is the Dead Sea between Israel and Jordan, which is 1,312 feet, 399 meters, below sea level. The lowest point on Earth's surface is thought to be in the Mariana Trench in the western Pacific Ocean, extending from southeast of Guam to northwest of the Mariana Islands. It has been measured as 36,198 feet, 11,034 meters, below sea level.
What is the female reproductive cycle?
The female reproductive cycle is a general term to describe both the ovarian cycle and the uterine cycle, as well as the hormonal cycles that regulate them. The ovarian cycle is the monthly series of events that occur in the ovaries related to the maturation of an oocyte. The menstrual cycle is the monthly series of changes that occur in the uterus as it awaits a fertilized ovum.
How often does a person blink?
The rate of blinking varies, but on average the eye blinks once every 5 seconds, 12 blinks per minute. Assuming the average person sleeps 8 hours a day and is awake for 16 hours. He or she would blink 11,520 times a day, or 4,204,800 times a year. The average blink of the human eye lasts about 0.05 seconds.
Why do all newborn babies have blue eyes?
The melanin in newborns is concentrated in the folds of the iris. When a baby is a few months old, the melanin moves to the surface of the iris and gives the baby his or her permanent eye color.
Which two special senses are closely related?
The special senses of smell and taste are very closely related, both structurally and functionally. Experimental evidence shows that taste is partially dependent on the sense of smell. Most subjects are unable to distinguish between an onion and an apple on a blind taste test when their sense of smell is blocked. This also explains why food is tasteless when you have a cold, because the olfactory receptor cells are covered with a thick mucus blocking the sense of smell.
Who first used the term prion?
Prions are abnormal forms of natural proteins. Stanley Prusiner, 1942, first used the term prion in 1982 in place of the expression proteinaceous infectious particle when describing an infectious agent. Prusiner was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1997. Current research indicates that a prion is composed of about 250 amino acids. Despite extensive and continuing investigations, no nucleic acid component has been found. Like viruses, prions are infectious agents.
What are the major parts of vascular plants?
Vascular plants consist of roots, shoots, and leaves. The root system penetrates the soil and is below ground. The shoot system consists of the stem and the leaves. The root system is the part of the plant below ground level. It consists of the roots that absorb water and various ions necessary for plant nutrition. The root system anchors the plant in the ground. The shoot system is the part of the plant above ground level. It consists of the stem and leaves. The stem provides the framework for the positioning of the leaves. The leaves are the sites of photosynthesis.
What are the major senses?
As early as 300 BCE, the five senses were recognized to include smell, taste, sight, hearing, and touch. More recently, scientists categorize the senses into two major groups. One group is the special senses, which are produced by highly localized sensory organs and include the senses of smell, taste, sight, hearing, and balance. The other group is the general senses, which are more widely distributed throughout the body and include such senses as touch, pressure, pain, temperature, and vibration.
What is the gravitational force on each of the planets, the Moon, and the Sun relative to Earth?
If the gravitational force on Earth is taken as 1, the comparative forces are. Weight comparisons can be made by using this table. If a person weighed 100 pounds, 45.36 kilograms, on Earth, then the weight of the person on the Moon would be 16 pounds, 7.26 kilograms, or 100 x 0.16.
How much energy does a typical nuclear power plant generate?
In 2008, the average nuclear power plant generated about 12.4 billion kilowatt-hours, kilowatt-hour. The smallest nuclear plant has a single reactor with 476 MW of generation capacity, and the largest has 3 reactors with a total of 3,825 MW of capacity.
What is the difference between a virus and a retrovirus?
A virus is a rudimentary biosystem that has some of the aspects of a living system, such as having a genome, genetic code, and the ability to adapt to its environment. A virus, however, cannot acquire and store energy and is therefore not functional outside of its hosts. Viruses and retroviruses infect cells by attaching themselves to the host cell and either entering themselves or injecting their genetic material into the cell and then reproducing its genetic material within the host cell. The reproduced virus then is released to find and attack more host cells. The difference between a virus and retrovirus is a function of how each replicates its genetic material. A virus has a single strand of genetic material, either DNA or RNA. A retrovirus consists of a single strand of RNA. Once a retrovirus enters a cell, it collects nucleotides and assembles itself as a double strand of DNA that splices itself into the host's genetic material. Retroviruses were first identified by David Baltimore, 1938, and Howard Temin, 1934. They were awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1975 for their discovery.
How many chromosomes are in a human body cell?
A human being normally has 46 chromosomes, 23 pairs, in all but the sex cells. Half of each pair is inherited from the mother's egg, the other, from the father's sperm. When the sperm and egg unite in fertilization, they create a single cell, or zygote, with 46 chromosomes. When cell division occurs, the 46 chromosomes are duplicated. This process is repeated billions of times over, with each of the cells containing the identical set of chromosomes. Only the gametes, or sex cells, are different in their cell division. The members of each pair of chromosomes are separated and distributed to different cells. Each gamete has only 23 chromosomes.